Welcome to Ragnar Riders Shop Talk, the ultimate pit stop for all things two-wheeled and roaring. We are mostly ordinary guys who live and breathe the motorcycle lifestyle. From our personal journeys to gripping product and accessory reviews, bike builds that redefine the road, the latest industry buzz, and a sneak peek into our future travels, consider this your front row seat to our motorcycling odyssey. So kick back, relax, and let the engines roar as we dive deep into the world of chrome, leather, and the sweet symphony of the open highway. Welcome to Ragnar Riders Shop Talk, where the rubber meets the road and the stories unfold in the wind.
Good day and welcome back to Shop Talk with the Ragnar Riders. I'm DJ Seeley. I got my good buddy Big John Woody with me and Randy B.
That would be me again.
What's up, everybody? We are hyped, getting ready for Daytona coming up. Got some interviews lined up for y'all that I think will be super interesting. I hope y'all been following along in our podcast so far. I got something that I want to talk about today that I think will be pretty interesting and lead into a little bit about us. But John, I want to pose a question. If you were talking to a new rider right now, let's just say, I'll give you a scenario. You're walking out of Sunday school. Somebody catches you and says, "Hey man, I saw you ride up today on that motorcycle. I've been thinking about getting a motorcycle. What do you think I ought to get?"
Well, I'd have to ask. I'd have to follow with a bunch of questions. Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't be able to give an answer straight off that. I would have to ask a bunch of clarification questions. And I actually had that happen to me just about 5 months ago. And the first question is, well, what kind of riding do you want to do? Are you looking for afternoon cruising? Are you looking for sport, adventure? I mean, there's all kinds of different categories. And of course, that individual's like, I kind of just want that classic Harley look. Now I'm talking, Softail Heritage. I'm talking Road King and the touring platform. So, based off giving some Q&A back to them, I was able to figure out what their interests are and kind of steer them down there. But there's so many different aspirations. I can think of one gentleman that was probably a couple of years ago. He had been in the sport bike world, but he wanted to step over into Harleys, and I think he went with one of the new Nightster's platform as a transition. So it really just depends on what they're looking at, and sometimes it's the kind of ride. For some people, it's the look. I mean, to be honest with you. So I would have to answer the question with questions.
Yeah, sure. I'm with you 100% there. I guess, what'd you start on, Randy? So I want to back up and say I'm a new rider, and by that, I've not ridden a motorcycle. I think you look cool coming in. I want to do what you do. But I'm a new rider. Where am I starting?
Well, I had dirt bikes, 75s, 85s, when I was little. So like a bike, and of course before that it was bicycles in the backyard, building homemade ramps and jumping them and going home to mom with a broke finger or, skint up, just so, entered into the world of two wheels really unafraid, which was dangerous to a degree. Mm-hmm. I have a different respect. I think the absenteeism or being absent from two wheels for many years and growing older, I definitely did not approach them the same as I did in my early years, because I just rode like I rode a bicycle and did some of the things that we did with bicycles. But, a 17, 18, 19-year-old young adult got a job, wanted a motorcycle. I remember, first one was a KZ650. It was a fun bike. Back then, it was more practical than for fun. I mean, we went to Thunder Beach and rode around some, but I needed something to get me back and forth to work that got good gas mileage, and a motorcycle was...
So I'm not familiar with that. Is that more of a cruiser, or is it more of a sport bike?
It's probably a cruiser, yeah. Okay. I mean, maybe a mix. Would you say, John? Maybe a mix. You had the Yamaha and the Kawasaki's that had the 650s and like 750s, I think, and then it got into 1,000 and 1,350, somewhere along there. They got bigger, but they weren't baggers. They weren't like what we know today as bagger motorcycles. So they were. They would be the Nightsters, the 883s. That would be the comparable Harley versions of those bikes.
So, John, when we first
Street
met,
bikes.
you had I remember it pretty distinctly because I'd been looking at the bike. You were not at home. I was at your house and walked around the house, and there sits was 100th anniversary. That's a mouthful. Y-Glide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have bikes prior to that?
I did not. That was my first bike.
First bike is a Dyna Y-Glide.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, sweet. So would you say that was a good bike to start on?
It was a fair bike to start on, but
Okay.
I kind of to your point, I'll go ahead and jump to the answer. I think is that was the bike image that I knew I always wanted, and so
So you bought an image, not necessarily a style per se, or whatever the end result.
I would say maybe just after dreaming of it for so long, the style formed to the image of the type of riding that I wanted to do, and the buddies that I had that rode at the time. I bought that bike while I was actually deployed overseas with military, and there was just happened to be the 100th anniversary year, and then, bought it, had it shipped to the local dealer, and then when I got back home after deployment, it was waiting on me, and of course went through and did the MSF courses, and I remember pulling out of the old riders location in Trussville on the Highway 11 thinking, what have I done? Making that first turn.
Hey, you had a long ride home.
I did have a long ride home. Yeah, I took a lot of back roads really slow, but no, I love that bike. With my age at the time, I guess I was late 20s at the time. That was I had a lot of fun on that bike, a lot of good memories, and it really met my needs. Now then, when I got further in the dating relationship, and I think I referred to in a previous episode, Mama that I'm now married to had a 2-hour limit on that pillion.
Right.
And she said then, all right, you're going to have to upgrade on your next bike. And I was like, well, I'll go to a Road King, because I still wanted that look and that kind of bar hopper look. But now you say we've talked about I'm in an ultra limited.
Yeah.
I don't regret that either. But
So you played into that exactly like I was hoping you would have, and that you bought an image.
yeah,
Because I think I was 100% guilty of that myself. I went 40 years of my life without a motorcycle. I very, very little experience riding. I mean, I had a couple of buddies that had some dirt bikes that I might have jumped on and rode across a football field type scenario, right? Just take it across the pasture one time, you don't learn anything about riding in that situation.
No.
But I had an image of what I wanted, and I had ideas in my head of what I wanted to do and what I saw myself doing, and that was touring.
Yeah.
It was me and Allison getting on the bike, heading down the road, and we're traveling and we're going places. I walk into the dealership, first bike, ultra limited. Big mistake. And so if I had a guy coming to me now saying, hey, I saw you pull in, you looked all cool, I want that, don't do it.
Yeah.
It would be my recommendation. Start somewhere else. And I wish I would have. I'd probably be a little farther along in my I guess, riding aptitude or career now had I done something different. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about was what you would lead somebody towards. Is it a Harley? Do you say a first bike being, I mean, what's our entry level now at Harley? If you say the entry bike, I don't even know that the Sportster, certainly not the Sportster S, is entry level. I mean, that's a fast bike.
Yeah, I would say your 883 or your,
which they don't make anymore.
Yeah, well, yeah. But
That
buying
used to
new,
be my
then
go-to,
you're-
maybe
yeah.
an 883.
Yeah,
But that's still a heavy bike.
yeah, it's
I don't know that Harley's got anything in their platform right now that I would say this is a beginner bike.
yeah. They don't even make the street
yeah. I
750
guess the
anymore, do they?
Nightster would probably be the closest thing, and then not only that, you're looking at a price point that's what $13,900 now on the Nightster.
Yeah, I mean and it's going to take a hit.
Yeah.
Like those things don't bring great money on the resale. So
No, they don't.
I've got somebody I've been watching on Facebook trying to unload an 883 for like $11,000. It was $11,000 new, Now it's used. It's
Well, he put a cam in it and put something on it.
well,
so.
maybe something,
I
but
mean, that's what everybody thinks. But anyway, yeah.
you know, his offers are $6,000-7,000.
Easily.
So you're going to take a hit on it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would steer somebody that direction. I think there's probably going to some sort of metric if you want a cruiser. I think there's some, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 Facebook Marketplace bikes out there that I would strongly encourage somebody to go to.
So you was talking about image. So, you know, and I think you have, there's a couple of images in the Harley world, and one is that what you talked about with your wife, you get kind of that biker, and you and I spoke this the other day, that biker scene, you know, like out of the movie Wild Hogs. You know, you've got, you know, the professionals that are riding their motorcycles and Tim Allen and John Travolta and that group, but then they go past that biker bar, you know, out on the road all by itself somewhere that they accidentally or on purposely burned down. Those were bikers. There was no baggers in that group. There was no, you know, that was that one group. And then you've got the touring group. All right, so you take those two and kind of set them aside, and then outside of that, really what you've got is your crotch rocket folks. You know, and that's a whole different lineup. So if somebody comes to me at the age of 19 and 20 and says, hey, I want to learn to ride, a lot of them have that in the back of their head because that's what a lot of the young world is doing today. You know, so if they're saying, hey, what kind of crotch rocket do I buy? I'm raising my hand and going, well, I'm out because I know something about them a little bit, but I don't know enough to give any recommendations. So are you wanting to, you know, do the biker world? Are you wanting to do the Harley or the VMAX or the street bike? Or are you wanting to, you know, do 140 down the highway as a normal speed?
And so, back to kind of gets to your point, you know, as a brand new rider, I think there's a couple of factors that the Q&A session, you know, part of it is I'm going to look at their physical stature. I think physical size is a part of it because, okay, maybe because of their experience, I'm saying, hey, you probably need to start out on 250 Rebel, okay? But they're not going to be comfortable on that. And they're outgrown that bike first time they leg over it.
No, you're absolutely right.
So is there a balance of, is their physical stature that, okay, maybe a 600 plus pound bike, okay, it's heavy for them to learn on, but is the center of gravity low, like a Heritage Softail, to where, okay, maybe it is a little bit heavier than a Honda Rebel 250, but with the low CG, it's very manageable. And because if they're sitting there 6'2", you know, 215 plus, that's really not going to be that heavy to manage. You know, but I do think that if you're looking at a smaller stature or a 17 or whatever, you know, I don't know that a lot of the metric reference a metric bike with some options of maybe a 600 motor or less wouldn't be a bad option, you know. And then actually there's some states that have limitations on the first year of what size you can ride. So
yeah, I think for me, what I would want to drive across to whoever I'm talking to, that's an inexperienced rider. There's some exceptions. If you've been running motocross for years and you want to get on a bike, we can probably have a different conversation than where I'm fixing to go with this. But if you've never been on a motorcycle before, this is all new to you. I think making them understand that there can be a progression is important. I didn't have that. I walked in, I talked to a salesman, I told him that I wanted to, you know, what the image I had for myself.
Your dream.
My dream, and he points me to the biggest, heaviest bagger that's made. And said, this is the King of Kings right here. Sign me up, 2.9%, got it. You know, and that's what we walked away with. But, you know, talk to somebody a few weeks later and they're like, you did what? And they were trying to inform me that, you know, your first bike doesn't have to be your last bike.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, well, but I wanted to be. But that's what I wanted. But it bit me in the butt, and you know, there's a long story. Ended up dropping it. I broke my leg and had to kind of start over and relearn how to ride, and took that path. I went back, y'all. I knew that I had taken the MSF course. I said, okay, after I healed, you know, we're months down the road. I said, okay, I'm gonna take the MSF course again, and took it again. And I said, okay, I'm used to driving this little street bike Harley's little street that they had for years, and ended up buying one of those. And what I think I rode it to the Dollar General that's like 5 miles down the house like twice, and said, "Nah, I'm good. We can move on from this."
We are good
It
to
was
go.
time to progress, right? 10 miles on it, and actually ended up selling it to John. He started his son on it. I think it was perfect for that.
It was. He put about 2,000 miles on it, and we upgraded him because he's 6'2".
He's not a small boy. But then I went to the Softail, the Heritage. Loved the Heritage. Did you ever ride the Heritage?
Mm-mm.
You owe it to yourself to go ride the Heritage.
Yeah, I've heard they were fun to ride.
I would. I've not been on a lot of Harleys, but I've been on a few, and that was a smooth running, riding, easy, just cruiser bike.
Yeah.
I've since gotten rid of it, but hope to have another one. It's on my list, put back in the stable. But I progressed from it to the Road Glide, and then back to the Ultra Limited, and sure, I've still got some learning to do, but I manage and get around just fine, I think, for the most part. But that was kind of what I wanted to drive home, was that progression. Do you think that Harley offers something in their platform for somebody to start with? I think, Randy, you mentioned the sport bikes. I don't think there's anything wrong with telling somebody, if you want a sport bike, I don't have anything against sport bikes. I want one. I hope one day to have a Ducati, but it's just kind of down my list of my wants right now. But telling somebody to start on, what do they got, a Ninja 300?
Yeah.
Not a small one? I wouldn't be reluctant to tell somebody to start on that.
No, it's a little different world, but it's the functionality of it, and the practicality of it is still the same. You 2 wheels, and you learn to ride. It's definitely what would you say, about 600 pounds lighter than than what we currently ride. But yeah, I would like to have one. I've looked at them. I will continue to look at them maybe one day. Mm-hmm. I'm 56, but I still get that wild hair, and I would be afraid right now that I might a little too much, so I'm holding off.
Yeah,
but yes,
there's other options beyond just the sport bike and a smaller platform, smaller engine, lighter weight.
Yeah.
I think used to, and Randy, you may know, Yamaha made a YJ. It was basically a Euro Tour, and obviously you get a bigger engine in it. But I want to say at one time they made a 250 to 500 engine size, and really for somebody that's not really sure what kind of style they're looking at, they just want to get into riding. Something that's in that middle of the road, adventure, touring, sport, little bit of it all. There's options out there for that would be great beginner bikes.
Yeah.
There is, and I think that, and I know this is going to sound probably a little bit odd, and you guys may completely disagree, and I think that's fine because we've done that before too. But my son came to me at one time last year and said I'd want to learn to ride. His mom nixed that in the bud, but I told him, I said, well, if you do, then he hadn't ridden a bicycle in a long time. I said, we're going to buy a bicycle. And I'll set you a criteria, and you will ride this bicycle every day. You're going to put some miles on it, and then we'll do some things with it and put you in a situation, and that's how we'll learn to ride. Well, he didn't think that was too fun. We never got to that point because, like I said, mom cut that out. But I'm telling you, if you do really have sincere to ride, and it's been a while since you've been on a bicycle, get a bicycle. Ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
Eli, your son, used to come by the house, and he put miles and miles and miles on that bicycle. I used to see him come around there, and the kids in the neighborhood did too. So,
yeah. So what Randy's
the same
referring
concept's
to,
the same.
Eli was a big mountain biker. He rode his mountain bike all the time, and so when he decided he wanted to ride, he went through the MSF, and it was of course they were on the Street 500s through local Harley dealership, but it was really an easy transition, in that. Just for an example, you don't have to explain to him what counter steer is.
That's
You know,
right.
he already understands that concept. So
You pull, you push.
Yeah.
you
He
go
may not
opposite.
know the terminology, but he
yeah,
knows how
so
to
he
do it.
understands the principle. So
right.
you didn't have to have that PowerPoint slide of your Friday night 4-hour lecture. This is what counter steer is.
That's
You
right.
know, because he already had that feel, and so he jumped right into it. And you know, they do some kind of grading system. And I think he ended up graduating top of his class, whatever that means. But you know, he jumped out right out there riding with us on that Street 750 that you had, that I bought from you for
Right.
him. And like day one, I was like, wow. He's, you know, I was very confident in his abilities, just not his situational awareness at that point of other riders and other vehicles. But
Well, at that point, it's not keeping it up; it's learning the throttle. Because obviously now we've got something that don't have two pedals; it's got a lot of power behind it. So,
yeah,
you know, but I mean, that's kind of what we're here for, right? I mean, we've started this. This was our goal, was to talk to people who, you know, were greener than us and try to help them along the way. And I think it's a great topic, that being able to say, you know, don't be afraid to start somewhere where you feel like that you're too good for, if that's the case, because the whole concept of, and I remember as a kid, I used to talk about jumping the ramps and stuff. We used to do the same thing on the bicycle that Be the Boss of Your Motorcycle guy does. Like, we would walk it.
yeah.
You know, turn to the left, turning it to the right. And we hopped it, walked it. I wouldn't do that to that 950-pound bike I ride now, but that's what he does because he's been doing it for decades. But as a bicycle rider, back when I was a kid, we used to do that all the time. It was not uncommon. So learn to really get in a situation where you fall over, you know, and then see what you did wrong, and then go to, if you have the ability. DJ, great point, like legit. If you have the ability, go bicycle, a dirt bike, because you can crash in the dirt and everything. You know, you can live to ride another. You know, move it on up gradually, whether it's a sport bike, a small whatever, and then in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that is, and money allows, then, you know, find yourself one day on that dream. But my God, don't be afraid to walk it up in phases. It's just not worth. Look, we get on these things every single day that we get on them. We know that there's a risk, and there is. I don't shy away from telling my wife when I leave by myself that, hey, just in case. Well, I don't want to hear it. Where are you going to it? Because we don't know. I've already had a wreck in mine. You guys know the story, and I did nothing wrong. Wasn't my fault, and a lot of that happens. So get confident in all the things you can do up until the point where you're ready to say, you know what, now I'm going to spend 20, 25, 30, 40, whatever thousand on a bike.
I think a point that I want to foot stomp and emphasize, and you and I already referred to it, but I want to go back just for a moment and just really drive this home. Whether it's an MSF course through your local Harley-Davidson dealership or your local state DOT or whatever the program is, go to MSF, Google it, find out where locations are, sign up for the beginner's course, and do that really even before you decide what kind of bike you want to do or you want to eventually purchase, because you may learn something about yourself through that course that may steer you in a different direction than what the look you were looking for.
Or away from it, period.
Or away from it, period. But
which could save
that,
you.
I mean, you know, a lot of these, there's obviously there's funding in different states and everything, but I mean, that's probably, what is it, $300-ish?
$300 or $400.
If you're looking to get in the motorcycle world, that is
Money well spent.
Money well spent in any regard.
See, I didn't have that, and I don't know if you did in your early days. I don't know when they started all that. Maybe they did. I just didn't have access to know where, when, and what. But
I had to have it to be able to drive on base, so I had to go.
So
get it.
that case, but you know, I'm a country boy. I didn't know anything about that kind of stuff, and dealerships like they are today were not plenteous, so there was no way to have access to it. But I support that absolutely 100%. If you've got access to any kind of training, or if you've got somebody that, you know, that's a seasoned rider that can, you know, pull you aside, get you in the parking lot somewhere with a small bike, somehow get some experience. And
well, the good thing is with MS, you're using in the beginner's course.
Yeah,
you're using their bikes.
That's right.
And they've got engine crash bars that stick out an extra 12 inches, so that if you do drop it, I mean, it's literally just teeter it right back up.
Sure.
I mean, and it's somebody else's problem if it does go down hard or whatever. But I can't foot stomp that enough. That's start there.
Yep.
Yeah, look, we love riding. We love going to the rallies. We love hanging out, the day trips, the everything that comes along with it. I wouldn't trade for the world. The friendships we've amongst us, amongst people outside this circle, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But had I have not had the ability to carry on, after I dropped my bike and broke my leg and that scared my wife to death, how quickly that happened. It really discouraged her. Had I not been in a position where I could have kept that bike, I was able to just park it and say, you know what, now's not the right time for this. At that time, we were all in. I don't dabble in things, so when we decided we were buying the bike, it was okay. We want the leathers, we want the helmets, we want the comm units, we want all the things. I'm thousands of dollars into this, 20 grand easy in bike and gear and things like that. So it would have been terrible if that had been the end of my road.
Yeah.
Like for motorcycling, if that had just been, well, I tried it, that didn't work out.
Yep.
Oh well. Luckily, I was able to park that bike. I ended up buying a trike, and I like the trike. Me and my wife had a ton of fun on it. We've put, I don't know, 15,000 and some change miles on it. Weekend getaways and road trips, and had a blast on it. Still got it. Still plan to keep it and put lots more miles on it. But I was able to, keep all my gear, put it to use, and then buy another bike, much smaller bike, to kind of work back up to the Ultra Limited to get to where we're at today. But not everybody's got that luxury. Like I said, I'm blessed to have been able to do that, but I would hate to urge somebody to go down that road with the potential of that happening to them.
Right. I agree.
There's Randy mentioned dirt bikes. I should have probably started with a dirt bike. Got off the road somewhere, logged some miles. I was with another friend of ours the other day whose name shall remain nameless, because we were looking at bikes, and his wife Kim may not appreciate knowing that he was looking at bikes.
Well, we're not going to tell you who you are. Wink, wink.
But we were looking at adventure bikes. Some of you may have picked up on social media. I just bought the GS. Love that bike. We'll talk about it here in a few minutes.
He's got 3 Harleys for sale.
No, not yet. Not yet. But, there's some adventure bikes out there that are lower CCs, that are very maneuverable, lightweight, that you can get out on the road on. And then that would be a bike that, if you wanted to add a big cruiser later on, you wouldn't necessarily have to replace one for the other and take that big hit. It would just be a different purpose bike.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't discourage somebody from looking at something like that. KTM 890 or something that's lighter weight, less power than a 2000 cc Harley.
It doesn't take, when you're talking about the weight of motorcycles, you go all the way from Harleys to Indians to to Gold Wing, to, those are just big bikes. And we've talked about the whole rally thing, and you go to rallies and you see all kind. You just really do. All the way from the, sports, which I call them crotch rockets, but you see, all variety of bikes. So you have choices. To emphasize the words of my parents when I was young, make good ones. Yeah. Make good choices. Yeah. Be wise in your decision, and just know that your first bike doesn't have to be your last one.
Doesn't have to be your last one.
Learn on it, collect, push that one aside, and move up. And before long, you'll have 4 or 5 in your garage.
Yeah. I could start a small dealership.
You could. That may be a YouTube video before long. I don't know.
What's interesting, and I happened to catch in my YouTube watching in my spare time an advertisement for a bike manufacturer that I'd never heard of before, but there's a lot of you're seeing a movement with a lot of what I would call throwback bikes, and they are the smaller I don't know what style to describe it, but these look like the old school Harleys, like early years Harleys. I think it was a company called Janus, Janus. Now, granted, that particular, when you start looking into it, they're a little expensive for what you get because you're paying for a lot of quality and paint and everything. But I think you're starting to see a lot of that kind of come back to where, that may be another option where, I mean, you're probably looking at a bike that weighs, I don't know, less than 250 pounds or something. It's got
Really?
they're small. I mean, think old school Harleys, and that's what the Janus
That's
looks
what
like.
they look.
I mean, you maybe got a 1 gallon tank on it. I mean, it's
Wow.
a single piston engine.
Going to
They're
Subway
really
and
cool.
coming back home. Going
Yeah,
to
yeah, I mean, but it's basically a bicycle with an engine on it. I mean,
So let me, okay, so I'm listening to that statement. I listened to our conversation right here. Let me throw this out there. An electric bike to start with.
a lot of push for that these days.
I mean, they're not heavy. I mean, you can
They're
get them
not
heavier, but
I mean, I've
the
sat
CG
on
on it, we talked about that earlier because of where the battery's located.
I'm not going to say that that's a bad idea, but they're not light. I mean, the Harley Livewire is, I don't know, you can probably Google how much that weighs, but it's not a,
No,
it's not a light, not saying it wouldn't be a decent beginner bike, but it's not a light bike either.
But there's other options out there that are not
Yeah,
as heavy
there-
as the
yeah, they
Livewire.
There, I'm sure.
And there's another company that's about to just come out that I think has got an introductory price of like $12,000 for an all-electric bike that has a range of like 250 miles.
Is it Zero?
I don't think
Zero is a big electric bike.
562 pounds
Yeah, so
is the live wire. So, yeah, I mean, it's.
that's almost
That's a
soft tail
heritage.
weight.
Yeah, soft tail.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
but
the
it's
soft
just,
tail's not bad for. I don't think it would be impossible for somebody to start on.
I think that's a size thing. If she or he, walks up and they're, 5'1" to 5'5",
Then that's still a heavy bike.
that's still a heavy bike. And your CG or your center of gravity is low, so you need something that, I mean, you guys know when we first started riding together and I had just got back into it, that was one of the things that I had to adjust on my bikes, doing some air rides, some other stuff, was I wanted to be sure-footed when I came into parking lots. And I'm 5'8", pushing 5'9", maybe on a good day. 5'10" used to be. I think you shrink as you get older. Maybe I was 5'11" in my
Some
mind, in my
platforms.
dream, But it was something that I felt like I needed to do because, I'm not a tall guy. So
Yeah.
that has to be taken. Weight is big, but I mean today, because I've got everything, I guess, fixed to where I can do it, I manage a 900-pound bike pretty well. And if it lays over, it lays over. I mean, that's what
Well,
they got
eventually, with
yards
more
for, so.
experience, you're going to grow to where, I mean, you can handle any weight and size bike.
Right.
But I think starting off, finding something that is lighter weight, lower CG, in the Harley world, I keep going back to the Heritage Softail, but it really just is a very well-balanced bike for a beginner. But there's other
Walmart
options.
Mongoose.
Yeah, Walmart Mongoose, yeah.
But let's not take power out of that conversation either, though. I mean,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you got to respect power.
the Heritage is it a 114 or 117 this year?
I'm pretty sure it's 114.
I think they kept the 114s in those.
Well, that's
But still, you're producing 100 or what?
80-ish.
About 80 to 90 horsepower.
yeah.
But I mean, the torque is good, so you hit that throttle, it's moving.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
so to my point is
Yeah.
you don't want somebody inexperienced that is unsure about, do I need first gear, second gear, half throttle, full throttle,
Right.
whatever, because 114 Heritage will move on down the road.
You
if
know
it
what?
has to.
If you really want to, and y'all may disagree with this, and I'll take it if you want to blast me for saying it, but I do it. I do it because I've been in it. I've been in one already, 1 years ago, minor. I go to Instagram, YouTube, whatever, and I'll look up, what is it, Motorcycle Craze is one of the locations that you can find where they crash them, where they have wrecks, and just look at how it go. Listen to a lot of them will talk about what went wrong, what happened. And you'll find out that a lot of them, if it scares you off from it, I'll say thumbs up. If it scared you off from riding, that means that maybe you weren't ready to go anyway. So thumbs up to that. If it doesn't scare you off, then that means you know the risks, and then you can start your learning process. But a lot of these people will tell you they're doing, you know, stunts, and it's all throttle and power related. They've cammed these bikes to do certain things, or, you know, they're horsepower sport bikes that'll do 225 on the highway kind of things. And it may give you some things to know what not to do when you get on a motorcycle. We're trying to tell you some things to do. Take courses, buy small bikes. That might show you some things not to do. Don't get on it and be Evel Knievel. For you younger folks, that's a guy that used to jump Grand Canyon stuff. So.
Well, and that was a fear that I had with my son, because like you mentioned earlier, fearless.
That's right.
You know, in his younger days of jumping ramps and stuff.
Well, they used to come over by the house and that open lot with their mountain bikes. And I'm telling you what, I could look out the window and I'd see heads.
Did you see when he destroyed his Trek?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He completely bent the frame and everything. But so I did have that concern, especially once he stepped up to, you know, 114 LRS after putting 2,000 miles on that street 750. Was, all right, how much of a fool are you about to act now that I'm putting some throttle underneath you? But you know, he's done well, but he's also, you know, he's still under the rule that he has to be with us in a group. He's not out riding by himself, even though he asks every day. Can I take the bike to school? But, I think there's just a maturity level there, and not to say that there aren't, not that he wouldn't be fine. And there's a lot of young teenagers before they're 20 that probably do have the maturity, or maybe that's the only option of transportation they have, and I respect that. But everybody's different when they're coming up, and their level of maturity and respect for the power. Back to your point of there needs to be a respect for that power, because it is different.
And I'll say, even having ridden now a couple of years and several thousand miles, there's something to be said for the smaller bike. The new GS that I got, and I know it's the new shiny thing in the basement, but it's easier to maneuver. It's easier to get out of the garage. It's easier to do everything that it does is going to be easier.
When you left out the driveway the other day, let me tell you what I thought. You know, we've been talking. You've been trying to talk me into it.
Yeah.
I only thought of one thing. I could leave out of my driveway and hit that where that dip goes in, where the drain is, and I wouldn't have to stop, afraid the mufflers are going to drag.
Yeah.
I just popped right over that thing. That's the only thing I thought about when you left the driveway.
I head out of my driveway, and you know, I got that little hill at the bottom of mine, and I just, it just, if I get in the grass, I get in the grass.
When I ease out of mine,
when I come up the driveway, I get it with a little more speed. I ain't worried about, you know. Anyway, it's just an easier bike than my Ultra Limited or my Road Glide. So when I come down the stairs into the garage today and I'm going to ride and go get a sandwich for lunch, it's like, you know, I got to walk that big heavy thing out and turn it around and crank it and let it.
Oh my God, is this where we're at with this?
Yeah, right.
We're on small violin.
Get on the GS and just.
So what you've done is you've bought a BMW bar hopper is what you've done.
I guess, if you want to call it that.
Because it's not what we talked about.
Bar hopping, but I mean, it's just an easy bike.
Well, and even to exaggerate that point and the points that we were making a minute ago, there's actually some thought processes out there in the adventure world that your GS is what, a 1350?
1250.
Yeah.
You know, they make a smaller platform on that. And a lot of...
Down to a 310.
Yeah, so I've heard some conversations that if they're actually using that adventure bike to be out off pavement trail riding, the preference is to be somewhere in that 850-ish range, because it is more maneuverable, it's lighter weight.
Yep.
If you do need to walk it without putting your feet down and you're, you know,
you can do it.
It's easier to do and keep that throttle up and keep that balance and center of gravity. Whereas the 13 or the 1250 model, a little heavier, a little higher CG, Probably a little bit more for the actual adventure touring that involves more pavement or at least dirt
More
roads.
touring, sure.
Yeah.
Well, one of the best selling adventure bikes is the KTM 890, I think is what it is. So it's in that line of what you're talking about. I mean, it's probably I'd say their biggest seller.
Sure. Well,
It fits that middle of the road kind of, it's a little bigger than who needs a light bike, but it's a little smaller than the bigger ones, so it falls right in that.
Yeah, and my brother and I have had that conversation. He originally wanted that we couldn't talk to any of us do it. Now that you've got one, it's stirring that conversation again. But he grew up riding dirt bikes.
Yeah.
So his mindset of an adventure bike is he wants to go over to Talladega National Forest and ride with 601, 600-2, and all these
Bankhead and all those places.
and all those places. And he said, I'm not looking for the 1250. I'm looking for that 750, 800 cc range because I want it to be a little bit more maneuverable.
Yeah, and there's a trade-off in the adventure world. You're either going to lean this way or lean that way. If you're going to do more on-road touring, I think the 1,000-plus cc motor is where they're going. And if you're going to be off-road more, we want a little more horsepower, a little less torque, and more of the 800, 900 range. And I think that's why the ADV world has kind of, was anxiously awaiting Harley's release of the 975 Pan America that hasn't come because everybody else got one.
And apparently it's not going to.
KTM's got the 890. You can get the GS in a 850, I think. So they've got smaller platforms for those guys that are going to spend most of their time off-road or want the more off-road capable. And Harley hasn't released it yet. They're sticking with the 1250, and I haven't heard that they have any intentions of going down to the 975. Now, in the real world, I think a capable rider will take the 1250 farther than I certainly will be able to take it. But could I take an 890 farther than I could my 1250? Time will tell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we got there saying that's just an easy bike to ride, and I wouldn't discourage somebody from starting on that platform.
Sure.
The Boxer is balanced. It's smooth. It's got a lower center of gravity than some of the other adventure bikes. It's been in production decades. I mean, it's pretty well refined.
I think it set the pace for all adventure bikes.
So that was when I decided that I wanted an adventure bike. The BMW was always kind of, I don't know, I liked it. But when you start hearing the murmurings and it's, the Pan America comes out and they're comparing it to the GS. Everybody wants to use the GS as the measuring stick. And I was like, I'm just going to buy the measuring stick.
Yeah, that's better to do that.
But I think there's another option, and I'm not real familiar. You may know more about this, but there's probably an intermediate step before you get into what we would consider a venture bike. Do they still have what they used to call the dual tour? Was basically just, it's a dirt bike that has mirrors and turn signals,
right.
And you can get that in a 250.
You can.
500.
I think you can get it up to it used to be up to a 500 or a 450, something like that. That was the big thing when I rode was that, we couldn't get on the road because we didn't have, turn signals, you had, or mirrors. The knobby tires was, obviously you paid decent money back in those days for tires, and the last thing you wanted to do was, let the asphalt eat them up. Mm-hmm. So, but the whole purpose that we owned dirt bikes was to get on the dirt. For whatever reason, I can see, and I have since I've been back into the motorcycle world, the adventure world is, I would say, if you included the entire world, all right, so everybody outside the U.S., it's as big or bigger than the world that we live in every day with our, adventure tour, the grand touring bikes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's enormous. DJ and I talked about that the other day. Overseas, they love them over there. The Harley world's growing in Australia and some of those countries, but Germany and having traveled over there, but Germany and all of Europe area over there. Their adventure bike is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Of course, so is the Vespa world too.
Yeah.
we hadn't talked about that. But the
Are
scooter
you getting a
world-
Vespa?
No. But
A Grump.
hey, the what's the little Honda thing? Not the Grump.
I think it's the Grump and something else. But we saw a couple of those in where was we at the other day?
I'm gonna rent him one when we get out of Panama City.
I mean,
we're all gonna rent.
Yeah.
We're all gonna rent Vespas and big.
I keep wanting to say Gronk, but it's not that.
A Grom?
Grom.
That's what it is. Yeah,
Grom.
yeah. I knew it was somewhere in there.
It's not a scooter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
a
borderline
pocket bike.
pit bike
Yeah,
slash,
pit
but I mean, everybody that I've talked
Well,
to
you know-
that's ridden one
Love 'em.
raves over how fun they are.
Well,
Yeah.
when I was a kid and we used to go to the beach all the time, we lived in Florida, and our family, because it was my dad, his sisters and brothers, and we all just went to the beach about every weekend. Honda 50s. Well, I mean, they had they had wider tires to handle the sand, but they were knobby. And oh my God, they were so much fun. I've got pictures of me on the back of one with my dad, several. But they were just so much fun. Just little
Have you
small.
seen Bills? Did you see Bills in the
That's
shop?
where I saw it at. Jeremy and I went
His
over there to
little
see it.
Groms.
He's got a Grom.
They're like 70 horsepower.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. Oh, they will go.
I mean, they will get it.
You could take one of those Honda 50s and hit the dunes, and those tires, those wide tires, and man, they would lay down some sand and just up.
I'm pretty sure they had a little
He had
ride
something.
at the dealership back last summer. And used to, if it was a ride that the dealership kind of endorsed, they would send somebody from the shop on the ride. And I'm pretty sure one of the mechanics went and got on one of his Groms and went off on this, 100 bike
Yeah,
ride on
that's
a
right.
Grom. It was kind of funny seeing him take off. But yeah, those
There
things
are
get out
there are small bikes out there, and there's a progression process in getting this done. Just don't be in a hurry to arrive where we sit today. This is from years and years of experience and riding, and we'll give our stories a little more in depth at some point or another. But yeah, it's been some bumps and bruises to get there. But if you'll listen to us and some other folks out there, try to help you. I promise you, we'll probably put you in a better place to after you've been riding 5 to 6 years, that you'll be a much more seasoned rider.
I'm really glad that we had this conversation because, in the early part of the episodes that we started with, we talked a lot about do your due diligence of modifying your bike. Well, I think that same principle applies to this conversation here, that if you're looking
Sure.
at motorcycling, do your due diligence, because ultimately, whatever vision that you have of what style of riding you want to do, what size of bike you want to have, it's all for naught if you don't take into the safety factor. And I'd much rather you slowly, as a new rider, progress to what you want as opposed to having an accident that you never get any further.
Right.
Yeah.
So starting off with that motorcycle safety foundation, starting whether your physical abilities, your size, your stature, put some limitations or opens doors for you. Don't feel like you got to rush right to where you're the end point.
Yeah, and I would say, there's bound to be some people out there that are going to listen to this podcast and have got it stuck in their head that there's this dogmatic world of if you don't ride a Harley Davidson, then you don't count, or you can't
not a
hang
real
out
biker.
here. You're not a real biker,
Right.
and I believe that's so dated, and I've not been witness to that anywhere. We go to bike nights, we go to restaurants, whatever, and there's all kinds of riders there. I would say if you want to get out and ride, pick the bike that you think fits you for the moment and go have a good time, and you'll be welcomed into that community. If you're not, it's not the people you wanted to be hanging around with anyway.
Yeah, it's not you and the bike you chose.
The vast majority of the people that I've met since I started motorcycling just love motorcycles. They like adventure bikes, they like sport bikes, they like Harleys, they want
Yep.
to ride them all. Every motorcycle I see, I want to ride at some point in time.
Yep.
I want to feel that one and that one and that one and that one. I want to ride an Aprilia, I want to own a Ducati, all of it.
So
Yeah.
we are travelers, and some of the information you'll learn about us again as we progress along here. But we have before gotten in a truck and been going all day on a Saturday just to go 300 miles away and look at bikes and dealerships. And we have been known to go in Indian dealerships. We go in Harley dealerships. We go into power sports dealerships that sell everything. We have one here in our area that's I won't call the name, but they sell multiple different brands. And we've been there for bike night a couple times. So yeah, I don't the whole brand thing. I'm a Harley guy. I like Harleys. Will I own another brand? Probably. I could and would. But it's not end all be all. What's on the tank, the name, whatever it is, if it's got two wheels and you love it, enjoy it, go ride it.
I agree.
John, take us out of here.
Appreciate you joining us. Hope you'll stick around for the next episode and hit that subscribe button. Randy, you want to close us out with the details?
Absolutely. Remember, we're not professionals. We are here for the fun and for the laughs. So if you want to reach out to us on social media, you can get to us on TikTok at, let's see, I believe it is at RR Shop Talk. Instagram is rr.shoptalk. Facebook is Ragnar Rider Shop Talk. And the email address is
rrshoptalk@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Love you guys. God bless. Till the next time.